The first step in working with Ajax is to learn about the API browsers provide for sending and retrieving information. The way you access the API is by using a XML HTTP request or XHR object. So let's take a look. I'm going to start off with a super basic page, and it's actually not going to be much of a page. The only thing this page will do right now is to load a separate script file that's going to do all of the work. So I'm going to go ahead and add the script tag right here. It's going to reference a file called script.js. And I don't need this type equals text/JavaScript, so I'll take it out. And I'm going to save this, and I'll go ahead and create the separate file. I have transmit open right here, so I'll right-click and select new file, and I'll call it script.js. I'm also going to need another file called data.txt, so I'll create it by right-clicking again, selecting new file, and calling this data.txt. Now I'm going to open up data.txt. This file is just going to have the words hello world here. I'll save it, close this out, and I'm going to open up my script.js file. I don't really need to do anything with the index.html anymore. I'll go ahead and open this up, and just to make it a little bit easier to work with, I'll drag it right next to this index tab, and so it'll dock it at the same place as this window. So let's start by creating the simplest of XHR requests. We'll need to create a new variable for the object that we're creating. Next, we need to create the request to our XHR object. The open function of this object is going to require 3 parameters. First, the method, which is going to be either get or post. Then the location of the data file. Since it's in the same folder as this document, it'll just be the name of the file. I should note here that Ajax requests have what's called a same domain policy, so you cannot request data objects from domains other than the one you're currently on. Now the last parameter we pass is a Boolean that specifies whether we want the request to be asynchronous or not. To keep things simple, we're making that false, and that makes our request a synchronous request. This makes our browser wait until the request is done before it does anything else, and this is generally a bad idea, but this is going to make our code simpler for now. So we've created this request, but it hasn't gone to the server yet. The send command is going to take care of that. Now I'm also going to output the results of the request to the JavaScript console. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and take a look at what we get from the server. So I'll load this page up on the server, and right now the page doesn't do anything. What I want to do is right-click. I'm in Chrome right now, so I want to select Inspect Element, and this will take me to the Developer Tools. And then I want to hit on this tab that says Console. So when you click on that tab, you'll see that it returned an XML HTTP request object. And we can open that up and take a look at what's returned from our request to the server. So one of the important things that we see here is the status of the request. That property gives us a number, which in this case says 200. That means the Ajax call was successful. If any other number was here, like 404 or 500, that would mean the call to the server was unsuccessful. So we can modify our code to check for that property. So I'll save that, and then I'll switch over to Chrome, refresh the page, and you'll see we get the same request. Now you can see the text from the file that was loaded in the response and respond text properties. The response text property is what you want to use because it always has just the text of our response. So let's go ahead and output that to our document with the write-line command. So let's save that, and we'll switch back into Chrome. And now we can see the text hello world appear in our browser. So I mentioned before that these requests we're making are synchronous, and that means the server is waiting until the requests are done before it continues. Right now, you really can't see that as a problem because we're only making a single request. So I'm going to change the code and make 100 requests to the server to see what would happen. So I'm going to save this, and I'll switch over to my browser, and I'll reload the page. And you'll see all the requests being made because I have the console open right now. But you can see that there's nothing appearing in my browser until it finishes with all the requests. And if you take a look at the Network tab in the Developer Tools in Chrome, you can actually see that the browser is executing the requests in sequence and that the page is not even updating until the whole thing is done. And that's not necessarily a good thing. So you use the XML HTTP request object to make calls and request data from your server. You start by opening a connection and then sending the data. You can check the status of your requests as well as access the text returned by your request and do something with that, like writing it to your page.